What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be taking another look at the Fossil Cup and specifically Aerial Ace ALOLAN Sandslash. Now, a lot of people don't even know that ALOLAN Sandslash can actually learn this move. It's kind of a weird moveset on this Pokemon, but it does cover one of its main weaknesses. Obviously, Sandslash is double weak to fire, which we have Drill Run coverage for already, but it's also weak to fighting, and we have Aerial Ace coverage, which is huge for this Pokemon. But of course, we do not want our opponents to know that, so we have to pair it with a Jellicent and a Mantine in the back. There are some fire Pokemon in this meta, very slim. It's only Magcargo and like Heatran, but and then it's mostly the fighters that we're covering with Jellicent and Mantine as the flyer and the ghost. So without further ado, let's hop right into some battles. Alright, into the first match, we've got Golisopod. So this is actually a lead where we have super effective coverage when normally both of our charge moves would be resisted. But I do not want my opponent to know that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up 5 Shadow Claws and catch a resisted charge move onto my Jellicent. I do bait out a Registeel, so it looks like this is a good swap. Baiting out a Steel type in the back for our Sandslash to punish, and so that our Mantine doesn't have to see it is always good. They do go for the charge move right away, and they don't overfarm even a little bit, so I will just let this go. Zap Cannon is enough to pick up the knockout. I am going to go for a pretty large overfarm here, and now I'm going for the Drill Run to pick up the knockout. Now remember, their Golisopod is completely energy dry, so if they come back in with that, they're going to be met with an Aerial Ace. Do they come back in with a Golisopod? No, they have a Poliwrath in the back, so they are ABA weak to the Mantine, so Mantine is going to be able to sweep this game. And even if not, I believe we have an Aerial Ace banked on our Sandslash for later. They do let one Aerial Ace from the Mantine go, but their charge moves are resisted, so I will let that go. All of the charge moves are resisted here except for both Ice Punch and Icy Wind, so I will be committing my shields in this matchup. It looks like that was a CMP tie, and somehow Mantine won that CMP tie. That's not how that should work, but either way, we're just going to shield up the Icy Wind. Go for another Aerial Ace. This should grab the final shield from my opponent, and then that means this game is over. It will stay in. Now I'm going to switch, go for the Aerial Ace combo play. My opponent has no idea about this coverage. It connects. They're one Shadow Claw away from farm down range, and we are able to take that win. Mawile in the lead. Let's check the fast move. Is it Fire Fang? It is. We have to instantly get out of that matchup, and we get into our Jellicent. And once again, a bad lead and a bad safe swap. We bait out a Ferrothorn here, which is even worse than the Registeel because they have super effective fast move pressure and super effective charge move pressure. However, their charge move isn't enough to one-hit KO, and we can actually land 2 Shadow Balls if they're slow on the switch. So able to connect with a second one here and actually grab a shield in this mid game. Of course, our Sandslash can come back in and eat this energy. Thunder is neutral, but we will let this go. They could be on Flash Cannon as well. It is the Thunder. In comes the Mawile. They tried to snipe, and this is where it gets awkward because both of our fast moves are resisted. However, my opponent only has resisted charge moves unless they go for the Play Rough, but they are on Fire Fang, so it's unlikely that they're going to have Play Rough. They're likely on like Power Up Punch, Iron Head, both of which would be resisted here. So I'm overfarming pretty significantly here. I took 2 power-up punches, and now I'm going for the knockout with the Water Pulse. Water Pulse actually grabs a shield for my opponent, which is a little bit strange, but I'm guessing they're just super weak to the Mantine in the back. I'm not going to be shielding up a power-up punch, but because these Fire Fangs are adding up, I am going to throw the Water Pulse right away. Water Pulse is not recommended on Mantine in this meta for some reason on PvPoke, but it absolutely is the move you want to go for. This time, I'm going to go for a catch onto my Sandslash, reading that the Mantine has use in the back. Completely sacrifice it, and there it is. There is the Gastrodon. They have double resisted Mudslaps, and we already have an energy lead. We also have 2 shields in this matchup, so all we have to do is get to 2 Water Pulses in order to pick up the knockout. We can shield a Body Slam here. We are actually getting very low from these Mudslaps. Mudslap just a hard-hitting fast move, and it looks like it's going to put us in farm down range. Can we get to the Water Pulse before we get farm down? The answer is yes. Water Pulse, is it enough to KO the Gastrodon? It is, and it's just the 1 HP Ferrothorn in the back, but they had more health than I remembered, and unfortunately Bullet Seed is enough to KO, so we do lose that game. tough lead in the next match. Going to save switch into our Jellicent here, and the opponent responds with a Tinkaton. Tinkaton is, of course, not a strong answer to Jellicent. In fact, down energy, I would argue this is a negative matchup for the Tinkaton, and once I connect with that Shadow Ball, I know that I am in a good position here. I am going to shield this up because if they do full send the play rough, which they do, we now have a significant pacing advantage. And now all I have to do is go straight Surf in this matchup. My opponent does commit the shield back, but that is okay. They're going to throw the charge move. I know I can live one play rough, but I didn't want to give them the ability to connect with a play rough and then pick up the knockout with the bulldoze. So now I'm just going to go for one more and the move. Pick up the knockout with the Surf, and what do they come in with? Are they going to come back in with the Gastrodon? If they do, that's fine, because we can just align our Mantine here instead. My opponent, worried about me getting to a move, actually throws the charge move, but it's just a body slam. Jellicent actually lives that on 1 HP, able to make it to the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will connect against the Gastrodon, and now we have the alignment that we need. And they're actually throwing energy here, so maybe ABA weak to the Mantine and the back. What is in the back? They're not willing to show me yet, so I'm just going to go for the Aerial Ace here to pick up the knockout. What is that Pokemon in the back that my opponent doesn't want to show me? It is a Fire Fang Mawile. So now this actually could get a little bit tricky because of course we have neutral charge move pressure, and my opponent actually lets that go, expecting me to be on Ice Beam like the recommended moveset on PvP Poke, but Water Pulse is neutral on Steels. I do not know why you would run Ice Beam. There's nothing that's weak to Ice in this meta. But now, because I connected with that Water Pulse, I can just go straight for the Aerial Ace, and all we have to do is pretty much get this low. Even if they are able to pick up the knockout here, that's fine. They're in Shadow Claw farm down range at this point. Resistant Ironhead picks up the knockout because they were boosted, but 2 Shadow Claws are enough to farm down the Mawile, and we're able to take that win. Into the next match, Scizor on the lead. So their fast move is going to be resisted in this matchup because Scizor in this meta is actually on Fury Cutter. However, you'll notice I went straight for the Aerial Ace, and unfortunately my opponent threw right before I got there. But the reason I did this is because they would know that would be an Ice Punch, so they'd be inclined to let that go. But now that they've seen the Aerial Ace and I was forced to overfarm, they are going to respect all the charge moves from the Sandslash. But they actually let us outpace here, which is a little bit strange, a little bit of lag there, but they are going to end up throwing their charge move. I believe this will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Sandslash. No, we're going to live on 1 HP, and we're going to actually bank that Sandslash for a catch later, and then save switch into our Jellicent. Of course, having that energy lead here is huge because we win CMP against the Ferrothorn, and Shadow Ball is neutral damage. It connects, it does big damage. And I wouldn't be surprised if I just let this go because we've already seen we can survive a Power Whip from full HP, and we can make it to another Shadow Ball on the potential CMP type with the second Power Whip. My opponent makes the correct play though of just overfarming and committing the shield, but now they are down 2 shields in this matchup, and I have a Mantine. Mantine obviously going to be shielding everything here. I do not want to take a double super effective Thunder. They do fire it off, no baits there, and they have their own Jellicent in the back. Fortunately, we do have an energy lead, so even though they are on Shadow Ball and Surf here, we will be able to outpace. Shadow Ball, I'm going to respect this damage. They do full send it, which is huge. Now we're going to go for another Aerial Ace, and now I just have to look for a catch here. Can I get this Shadow Ball catch? It's going to be close, and the answer is yes. Absolutely huge catch there onto the Sandslash, and now we can overfarm pretty significantly, going for the Aerial Ace at the very last second, right before my opponent makes it to another Shadow Ball that picks up the knockout, and we already have an Aerial Ace loaded for the Ferrothorn, which was, I believe, 1 away from a Power Whip. So Aerial Ace picks up the knockout on the Ferrothorn, and Mantine able to sweep that endgame. Forehead reveal. Into the next match, we've got Sandslash into Togedemaru. They safe switch into a Lucario, which, I mean, is kind of a crazy safe switch just because of how glassy it is and how many Gastrodons there are. That said, they do have super effective Thunder Punch in this matchup, but they're taking so much damage from these hexes. Lucario is so glassy that I can go straight Surf in this matchup, and now that I've already grabbed a shield, I'm willing to commit the shield back. Jellicent, we have a pacing advantage in this matchup, so we can actually catch up in energy if we need to, which is why you see me overfarming as much as I can. Now, picking up the knockout with the Surf, we maintain Switch, which is huge. Can I make it to 2 Surfs? It looks like not quite, so I am just going to full send the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball from this range, probably going to grab a shield. No, my opponent's actually going to let that go. And now I can just come in with a Sandslash. I can take a Wild Charge, it's going to hurt, but they're going to instantly pivot. So Wild Charge connects, I instantly pivot into my Mantine, and it's a Poliwrath in the back. And that makes sense for my opponent, team building wise. As you saw, I ran a very similar team with Togedemaru, Tauros, and Poliwrath. That team was incredibly strong, and this team is honestly strong overall to that, except that you're running Sandslash, which is more of a neutral matchup in Togedemaru than you would expect. So, but we have the good alignment that we need. Aerial Ace connects. I can let this go. I don't really want to give them farm in this matchup, which is why I'm letting all the charge moves go. Now I can go for the farm down of the Togedemaru, come out with an Aerial Ace loaded, which would normally be an Ice Punch and resisted. So we knocked them out with resisted, super effective damage instead of resisted. I mean, it would have done well either way. They're at 1 HP. But into the next match, we've got a Forretress on the lead. This is, of course, a good lead, but my opponent is actually opting for Volt Switch in this meta. However, they do just settle for a Rock Tomb here, not even building up to the Earthquake, so I will let this go. It's actually a Sand Tomb. So Sand Tomb, it is super effective damage, and it lowers my defense, but it's just a crap move overall. I'm already at 2 charge moves before they make it to a second charge move as well, and they actually end up respecting the Aerial Ace there, even though it wouldn't have been enough to KO, and normally would have been only enough for an Ice Punch. So kind of surprising for my opponent. And now they're going to make it to a third Sand Tomb, so I will just let this go. I can probably live this, yeah, just barely. Now I'm going to safe switch into my Jellicent. Can I get the full farm down? It looks like not quite, but my opponent reactively switches into a Lucario, which is a bit of a strange play. Yes, they have super effective coverage here, but I mean, they do not have a good matchup here. Obviously, Force Palm is double resisted, Thunder Punch connects, and I'm still able to live that and get the full farm down. Now it's about what is in the back. My opponent doesn't want to show me what's in the back yet, but they were close to a charge move, so I'm going to throw one in the move to throw in good timing, pick up the knockout with the Surf, and it's a Jellicent of their own in the back. How good is my opponent's counting? Do they know I've made it to another Shadow Ball? They don't. They let that go, which is absolutely huge. We were already in a pretty good situation. I do go for a BM catch. My opponent knows they no longer have a win con though, so they just resign the match. Into the next match, we've got a Ferrothorn lead. This is a good lead. The opponent safe switches into a Poliwrath, and I answer them with a Jellicent. Jellicent is a complete wall to energy here, and counter is double resisted. So this is an extremely dominant matchup for the Jellicent. Of course, you do want to throw on better timing than that, but I didn't want to go over 100 energy, so I should have just thrown 1 in the move instead of 2. But they actually end up throwing an alignment right back, so we actually end up getting a Hex's worth free of energy through, which is nice. Now I can connect with another Shadow Ball. I don't know why my opponent is fighting for switch here. I don't think they really can, but Shadow Ball does connect. Isn't quite enough to KO, but we still have a pacing advantage. They end up making a nice catch onto the Ferrothorn, but that is neutral damage with the Shadow Ball, and now we have the alignment we need. I don't want to show my opponent that I have the Aerial Ace covered just yet, so just going straight for the drill run here. Looks like 2 of those will be able to pick up the knockout, and I can very easily live 1 Thunder. My opponent ends up baiting, which is a little bit strange, but now they're in Aerial Ace range, so just going for the knockout with the Aerial Ace, and that does pick up the knockout. What is in the back? They're going to come back in with the Poliwrath, only to try and make a peekaboo catch onto their Jellicent. Bit of a strange play, because now I can get super effective Shadow Claws and a neutral drill run off on this Jellicent. Can I make it to another charge move? The answer is yes. Another drill run is made. This will do very solid damage to the Jellicent, and we actually grab that final shield. I still have 2 shields and a Jellicent still in play. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in with my Jellicent. I'm going to force them to throw their energy. That way they're nearly energy dry because they need to full send a Shadow Ball. And I can just shield 1 up here. Now, of course, I do want to save 1 shield for the Ferrothorn on the lead in case they are able to make it to a Thunder. But my opponent knows after that Shadow Ball is shielded, they no longer have a win con, so they just resign the match. Another Ferrothorn on the lead. This is a good lead. We've seen it before. They safe switch into a Golisopod, and I'm staying in to throw the Aerial Ace because my opponent thinks this is probably just an Ice Punch. This hits for super effective damage instead of resisted, and now I can come in with my Mantine, soak up all of this energy, get a full farm down without even throwing a charge move, and come out absolutely loaded with energy here. They can make it to 2 charge moves. You do want to go for Aqua Jet in this matchup because both are resisted, single resisted that is, but Aqua Jet is a better damage per energy move. They end up coming back in with the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is going to be met by an entourage of Aerial Aces. Here comes a second Aerial Ace for the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn probably just going to let both these go. They know they're already not in a great matchup. And they have to go for a Power Whip in order to pick up the knockout here. They have overfarmed pretty significantly here, so if they wanted to make it to a charge move against my Sandslash before I make it to a charge move of my own, they totally could. They end up throwing out alignment, but because I got 1 turn lag, unfortunately they aren't punished for it. There it is the Jellicent in the back. Now this is a little bit awkward because yes, I have a Jellicent of my own, but my opponent has an energy lead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a shield first, and then I'm going to come in with my own Jellicent. And now I have a decision to make. Do I call the bait? And I do. And they bait with the Surf, which is absolutely huge. That puts us at a huge advantage. And now we can outpace the Shadow Ball. I've already grabbed 1 shield from my opponent, so no point in baiting here. The opponent does make the correct shield call, but I have 2 shields in play. And even though this is probably just another Surf bait, I will be able to outpace here, unless they come back with the Ferrothorn, in which I will be forced to throw my energy right away because they were pretty close to a charge move. In fact, I think they were 1 away after that second Bullet Seed. So I'm going to pick up the knockout with the Surf. In comes the Jellicent, and now all I have to do is make it to a Shadow Ball before they're able to make it to a Surf plus a Shadow Ball, and we do get there, which is absolutely huge. So Jellicent absolutely sweeping this end game here, getting a KO on both those back 2 Pokemon, and we are able to take the win. Another Ferrothorn on the lead. Yeah, this meta, super diverse, really great meta, fantastic typings. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so we've got Sandslash into Ferrothorn. This one's actually staying in, which is a bit strange. They want to take these neutral drill runs and throw their resisted Thunders. I mean, I guess it's not as terrible of a matchup as you might expect, because Thunder does 2-shot. They do end up going for a catch there, which is kind of funny, because now, guess what, opponent? I'm not walled on energy here. I actually have a super effective charge move, and now, same exact game plan. Gonna come in with my Mantine, get the full farm down, let both charge moves go, come out loaded with energy to threaten whatever is in the back. Even though Mantine's energy is not super threatening, it can go decently far in this meta. What is going to come? It's going to come. The Ferrothorn is going to come back in, which is okay because these Aerial Aces are neutral. Can we make it to another Aerial Ace? The answer is no, but that's fine. At this point, we can probably just Hex down with Jellicent, so I wouldn't be surprised if we come in with Jellicent instead to get a nice little energy lead, and that is what we're going to do. In comes the Mantine in the back of their own, and they are able to outpace, make it to an Aerial Ace. I know I can live one of these very comfortably. I could safe switch into my Sandslash here after throwing the Shadow Ball, because that would force them to go for a Water Pulse, but I am able to connect with the Shadow Ball, and now where do I go from here? I'm actually going to shield this up. It is another Aerial Ace. I'm probably can just go straight Surf in this matchup because they are already in the yellow, and if there's not enough to KO, I can catch onto my Sandslash, but they end up banking that energy. Can I get the full farm down? The answer is not quite, but I'm able to get the farm down with the Sandslash, and my opponent just resigns the match, so we are able to take the win. Golisopod on the lead in the next match. Gonna do the same thing as I did in the last match. Don't want to expose the moveset just yet, so I'm gonna throw 5 Shadow Claws and go for the catch, but my opponent actually holds on to their energy, so they're loaded on the Golisopod, and now they safe switch into a Ferrothorn in response to our safe switch of the Jellicent. I do end up throwing the Shadow Ball on the CMP tie with the Power Whip, but we've seen this before. We can live a Power Whip. Looks like I was a little bit lower on the switch because of those Shadow Claws from the Golisopod, which means I cannot make it to a second Shadow Ball. However, that Surf does okay damage, and now I can just let one charge move go. It's just a Power Whip. I don't know why so many of my opponents are going for Power Whips against the Sandslash, but I do get the full farm down. In comes the Golisopod. I will shield this up because I actually have more energy than my opponent here. I believe they have 8 Shadow Claws worth of energy, and they end up throwing a Liquidation. So a bit of a surprising moveset from my opponent there. Can I make it to back-to-back charge moves? The answer is yes. They end up making a catch onto a Jellicent, but this isn't resisted. This is neutral. And now I can just overfarm a little bit, go for a drill run to do a little bit harder hitting damage. And then once I've grabbed that shield, I can go for a catch of a surf onto my Mantine. I am unsuccessful, which means this is likely going to be a Shadow Ball, but that's okay. I can just shield this up, and once we get that shield call right, this makes this game a whole lot easier. But here comes an Aerial Ace. I already know I can live a Shadow Ball. In fact, it's going to take 2 in order to pick up the knockout there, but that just shield ensures that they're not going to bait later on. So here comes the first Shadow Ball. I live that pretty comfortably, watching for the catch, and now going for an Aerial Ace in order to pick up the knockout. Will this be enough to pick up the knockout? The answer is yes. So in comes the Sandslash, gonna meet the Golisopod with a super effective Aerial Ace. An Aerial Ace from this range picks up the knockout onto the Golisopod, and we are able to take the win. And that is a 5-0 set. I also have a bonus battle here in at the end with Araquanid instead of Jellicent. But here we go. So we've got a Gastrodon in the lead. I say switch into my Araquanid, and instantly I am met with a Jellicent. So my charge moves are completely walled here. Bug Buzz does have a chance to lower my opponent's defense, but it does not get it. But look at this. Only off of resisted charge moves and fast moves, we've gotten the Jellicent into the yellow health range, pretty much in the same health range as we are. I'm unable to make it to another charge move, but they do have to full send a Shadow Ball in order to pick up the knockout here, which they do, so they make the correct play. But now I can just come in with the Sandslash, get a full Shadow Claw farm down. I can survive one charge move here, so I will let this go. Surf does connect. Can I get the full Shadow Claw farm down? The answer is yes. Gonna instantly pivot into my Mantine. And what is that Pokemon in the back? It is a Scizor. And this is a matchup where obviously Night Slash is neutral and Fury Cutter is resisted, but they do charge a little bit faster. However, both Wing Attack and Aerial Ace are neutral on my end because it's super effective on Bug, but resisted on Steel. So as soon as they let that charge move go, I see a win con, and it is Mantine. Mantine is going to be shielding up the second Night Slash to come my way, and now we have a shield and a Mantine against a 2-shield Gastrodon. So this could get interesting. Obviously, my opponent does have really hard-hitting Mud Slaps, but they're double resisted here. But if they farm up to a Body Slam, I'm going to catch it onto my Sandslash, waste all of that energy, and I think I can make it to back-to-back charge moves here, which is why you see me going for an Aerial Ace first. Aerial Ace does connect. Does that allow me to get to the drill run? It does. This will do a massive chip unless my opponent commits their final shield, and they do. I believe that actually probably would have KO'd, and now it's just a race. I should get one fast move and a charge move off before my opponent gets a fast move and a charge move off of their own, but I did get 1 turn lag. However, I had a shield because we caught. Aerial Ace connects, and we are able to take the win in that little bonus battle. But yeah, that is Aerial Ace Sandslash in the Fossil Cup. This thing honestly surprised me. I had a way better record with this team than I was kind of expecting. When I was experimenting with other variations of this team, I just felt like the Bug Bite or like Fury Cutter users on a safe swap were tough against things like fighters because obviously that fast move is resisted. So switching to the Jellicent and the Mantine backline I think really helped Sandslash thrive. That said, Aerial Ace coverage absolutely fantastic in this meta. Definitely better than Ice Punch. A cool surprise moveset that you can use on things like Golisopod where you'd normally be walled, or if you're able to grab both shields with Jellicent or Mantine on a Poliwrath and they save it for later, and then you have a super effective Aerial Ace to pick up the knockout. Like it's cool like that. It's got some really niche play, and that's why I wanted to showcase it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.